This podcast is intended for investment professionals only. All investing involves risk.
Saturday marks World Ocean Day, which since its inauguration in 2002 has been focusing minds on the threats facing our oceans and the actions that are needed to protect them. So it seems like the ideal time to talk about water on Earth, specifically the threat posed by water scarcity, how new technologies might alleviate the problem, and how LGIM views the water theme from an investment stewardship perspective. I'm Harry, a content manager here at LGIM, and here to discuss these themes today are Alex Burr, our ESG Policy Lead within the Investment Stewardship team, Ellie Piscopiello, a Senior ETF Analyst, and Shichen Zhao, ETF Thematic Research Analyst. Thanks all for joining me today. I wonder if I can start by asking you about your personal connections to the ocean. For me, for instance, it's become a bit of a New Year's tradition in the family to drive down to Budleigh Salterton in Devon, where I live, to sit by the sea and reflect on the year that's just passed. Shichen, what do oceans mean to you personally?
That sounds amazing. So for me, I love oceans and I have passion to explore the ocean since I was a child. Surfing is my favorite water sport because it's giving me the feeling like connected with the waves and the ocean. And this March, I had the chance to try scuba diving and admiring life in Indian Ocean for the first time in my life. I'm totally hooked. I don't know if you have similar experience, Ellie.
A little bit, yes. So my passion really started by watching documentaries. I was born in a place by the sea, so I've always enjoyed going to the beach and I've taken it for granted for a long time. But then I started to see the turtles and things like that on the shore that really touched me. And I watched a lot of documentaries. So David Attenborough really is my hero. So I decided to go to Galapagos to really see nature and the sea life, marine life myself. Something that I find so mysterious is that the vast majority of the ocean floor remains unexplored. And we know less about it than the surface of Mars and the moon. So this makes me super curious about what I can see there and how unique and fragile these ecosystems might be. So water really is something that even I have taken for granted, but really thinking about it, it's the source of life, development. All the great civilizations, so Egyptians, Romans, were built near the water. They used water streams and the sea for commerce and development, even in the UK, something that we can say. How about you, Alex?
Thanks, guys. So, funnily enough, I echo actually what all of you have just said. When I think about the ocean, I think about family and I think about friends. It's where I feel most at home. Indeed, Eliza, my family also for many generations have been beside the sea. So for me, it's been a playground. It's been actually a place of work. And I think it's a wonderful place to spend time, somewhere where you can immediately connect with nature and somewhere which undoubtedly needs our utmost respect and indeed protection.
Really interesting reflections there, everyone. Thank you for that. I think a number of you touched on the importance of water and oceans for all of human civilization, really. Alex, I wonder if you can expand a bit on this, focusing on how LGIM approaches this topic.
Yeah, thanks very much, Harry. So let me touch on briefly why we're looking at water. I mean, aside from the fact water, as Eliza has already said, is a fundamental part of life on this planet. It is vital for not only the health of our ecosystems in the natural world, but also human health, energy production, and indeed societal and political stability. It is also without doubt central to our global economy. Indeed, the economic value of water is absolutely vast. So last year, WWF conducted some research that estimates the annual economic value of water, so that's direct and indirect benefits, to be in the region of 58 trillion. Unfortunately, whilst this is our most precious resource, it is commonly undervalued. The water system is being mistreated, neglected, and degraded. And you can look at this from a sort of quantity perspective, so increasing pressure from the demand side, population growth, energy production, agricultural use, or indeed from the supply side, so land use change or aging infrastructure, depleted groundwater reserves, or indeed climate change. One interesting or important piece there is that the UN has announced that we've breached planetary boundaries on water, and by the end of the decade, demand is going to far outstrip supply, I should say. You could also look at it from a quality perspective. So by that, I mean the biological, chemical, and physical properties of water. This is deteriorating and under increasing pressure from municipal planning or pollution from industry and agriculture. Again, the UN have some interesting figures around this. So globally, 44% of household wastewater is also untreated, which is impacting ecosystems and human health. So bringing it back to why we're looking at it, as mentioned, all of us, companies and societies, derive value from water. It's a part of what we call natural capital and provides us with ecosystem services. Companies will have both dependencies and impacts on water. These interact and compound over time and can undermine the availability of these ecosystem services and therefore the value we get from them. As I've outlined, water issues are complex and wide-reaching, and companies can be exposed to different water-related risks. So you can think of physical risks such as flooding or water scarcity, or transition risks such as changes in regulation, which would limit extraction, or changes in the price of water to reflect the true costs, or indeed reputational damage, as we may well see in some markets at the moment. These are all determined by sector and geography. So in short, the degradation and mistreatment of the global water system is a systemic market risk in our view. The World Bank has estimated that in some regions, water-related impacts on agricultural health and incomes could knock off as much as 6% of GDP by 2050. And the World Economic Forum has included water crisis 7 times in the top 5 global risks by impact in the last decade. So in summary, this is present, this is now. We are focused on addressing these risks in a marine and freshwater ecosystem.
Thanks, Alex. It really would be difficult to overstate the importance of water for life on our planet as we know it, and the gravity of the threats that are facing us, not just in the distant future, as you highlighted, but today and here and now. Ellie and Shichen, I wonder if I can call on you now to talk a bit about how technology might offer some potential solutions here.
Yeah, we actually recently published the white paper in water technology. I'd say it's a very interesting piece because the main motivation behind this white paper is that water scarcity is such a growing concern on every continent, and it has impacts on all of us. Because like when you're thinking about water supply, even though water covers around 70% of the Earth's surface, there's only about 3% of this is fresh water. But over the years, we have been observing like water demand increase dramatically. It's with the growing population and rising industrial use.
So we have a problem of scarcity and a problem of pollution. Scarcity is intensifying, and Alex mentioned this earlier, but demand is expected to outstrip supply by the end of the decade by 40%. With every problem, though, comes an opportunity. And with all these concerns, we asked ourselves what we can do as investors. So we published this white paper with a focus on solutions to water scarcity. And the aim is to help investors have a better understanding of some cutting-edge clean water technologies.
Okay, so can you give us some examples from the white paper of the main technologies you see as being important in the space in the decades ahead?
Of course. So I think everyone has ever heard about desalination because it's such a hot topic over the years. But it seems very obvious for all of us to take available seawater and convert it. But we wouldn't talk about water scarcity if it was that easy. As you could ever imagine, the process of water flowing through pump system and in some cases gets distilled or evaporates, it consumes a lot of energy. And what to do with the heavily concentrated brine left over is another issue because it has potential to cause food chain pollution, cause damage to the marine population. So with all the challenges, there's loads of innovations are happening around this area. We expect desalination as an emerging opportunity to have up to 10% growth every year until the end of decades.
Wastewater treatment technologies are another big trend. By leveraging wastewater treatment technologies, we can improve water quality and increase water reuse. There are already some matured water treatment technologies existing in the market, and we expect to see a growing adoption demand of these technologies. Among all the water reuse methods, membrane technologies are a notable growth opportunity because liquid filtration and separation process does not require a heat source. Membrane separation tends to use far less energy than other similar processes. New membrane materials discovery could drive the next wave of water technology innovation. Water digitalization to use and manage water more efficiently is another important topic. In the UK here, the water infrastructure is really old. The UK has one of the oldest water infrastructure systems in the world, and this has to be upgraded. UK water companies indeed have almost doubled the amount they plan to invest until the end of the decade compared to the previous 5-year period. These companies have a tactical 5-year plan to deliver on their standards of service. An important issue is leaks. So looking at the distribution of water in the infrastructure, we have spoken a lot about treatment, desalination, so more on purifying water, getting fresh water. But how about the fresh water that we have that is lost due to leaks? The first step here is to detect these leaks with advanced sensors. And these are basically physical assets that are located underground or over the ground that communicate directly with utilities companies. And they go from satellites. So satellites can take pictures of the ground. They identify areas with abnormal patches of vegetation. And that possible cause for that could be a leak. Or sensors, loggers, pressure control methods. So all these physical tools linked to analytical devices that can enable utilities to control the flow of water, check if there is too much pressure, if that could cause any issues to the pipes, to the valves, and if they could break. All these systems look at what is going on today that could be influenced by leaks or how leaks can be prevented, essentially. And yes, all these systems inform water distributors. Another problem is managing, or something that we can do is to manage waste overflows and drought situations with artificial intelligence models that gather environmental data and digital twins that run real-time simulations and use this data to make informed decisions and improve the infrastructure. One last thing that I would mention would be smart meters. It's not yet compulsory to have them installed in the UK, but it's something really, really smart that we can do. And utilities can also use this data to see if the water that we are consuming is the same as in the same quantities as the water they are delivering. That also helps with leaks. So there are changes that are happening in our daily life.
Thanks, Ellie and Shichen. There's obviously a wealth of technology that's being put to use in this space. I wonder if you can just really briefly cover how governments are supporting investment in these sort of technologies.
Yeah, definitely, because there's another part, as you said, the government is not just what we do as individuals or private companies, but governments. So on average in Europe, the European Investment Bank is financing 3 billion euros of water infrastructure projects every year. And in the US, there is about $10 billion being invested every year through to 2026 as part of the bipartisan infrastructure law. And this is to improve drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure. This is the single largest investment in water that the federal government has ever made.
Alex, I wonder if we can turn now from the technology side of things to the role of the asset management industry in directing capital with the long-term health of our water system in mind. What practical actions are we at LGIM taking to address the risks facing this water system?
Thanks, Harry. So as you know, our team, our investment stewardship team, is focused on addressing systemic market risks. We do this by raising market standards across 6 strategic themes that target these systemic risks. Water, whilst is a cross-cutting theme, it is a central pillar of our strategic theme on nature. As I said earlier, we're coming at it from a quality and quantity perspective, and also covering two distinct realms within nature. And by that, I mean marine and freshwater systems. So back to that, what we're practically doing, we're engaging across the board, across our sort of suite of instruments, whether that's from policy to corporate. But let me start at a corporate level. Over the last sort of year and a bit, we've been finalizing our minimum expectations for companies and what we'll hold them to account on. So this is what areas we'll be looking at to assess their water-related risks, or whether they're conducting an assessment, how they've assessed it. Is it direct operations? Does it include value chains? Is there board oversight? And indeed, are they collaborating to resolve some of these really complex challenges which they may face? And then finally, are they disclosing? Perhaps this could be part of the TNFD, or the Task Force for Nature-Related Disclosures. Is it an integrated report with climate? So these are the sorts of things we'll be focusing on. Some of the collaborations we work on as well. So Eliza spoke about water utilities in the UK. We are part of an investor forum working group on water utilities, and this has been engaging both directly with them, but also the regulatory environment to look at the challenges that they face, that next 5-year period, and what we can do in the medium sort of term. Then there's also collaborations like the Ceres Value and Water Finance Initiative, where we're looking at large companies, 72 large companies across 4 water-intensive sectors, so apparel, beverage, food, and high tech, and how they address their water-related risks. And then finally, we also have integrated water into the Elgin ESG score. Before I move on, there's also part of what we do is at a policy level. As we all probably know, water cuts across many different remits. So a lot of departments, a lot of regulators, and a lot of agencies are involved. This, unfortunately, does create some tension and some disconnect. And indeed, there is often a disconnect between those global commitments, so Paris or Montreal, the biodiversity framework, and the implementation. There's also challenges around resourcing of those departments. It's where the monitoring and enforcement of such regulations could fall down, and unfortunately we have seen fall down in the past. Another area of our work is actually also improving that data landscape for investors, and that falls under another theme under nature called natural capital management, and where we're working with partners like TNFD to strengthen that global landscape. And then just sort of finally, part of what we do on water is outlined in our approach document on nature, so our nature framework, which can be found online, and that gives you a bit more of a flavor into how we're structuring this. We will also shortly be releasing our water policy. Again, that will go into a bit more detail about what I've just outlined.
Okay, so turning from the role of large institutions such as LGIM in looking after the world's supply of water, what can we as individuals do whenever we talk about water on the podcast? I think it's nice to hear some new ideas of things we can do in our ordinary lives to try and conserve water. Ellie, Shichen, Alex, any ideas?
Yeah, like I think intuitively for every individual, the first thing come to my mind is trying to reuse the water as much as possible in our household level. For example, we can just really water that has been used to washing fruits can be saved for some watering plants.
I do the same. And what I also do is try to turn off the tap. It's easier in the summer, but I try to do it always while showering or brushing my teeth when I don't need water.
Yeah, and there are some companies that actually we have looking, they are offering some household level water purifier. Is to ensure that water saving and purification of water at the same time. So it offers an option to install a water purifier that can help you recover more water. So I think it's also a nice way to tackle from individual level.
Yeah, just to echo those great ideas, unsurprisingly, I might say this, but then what can you do when you see issues in the sort of your local environment or at a national level. I think half of the world's population is going to the elections this year. So what can you do elevating and raising it up the policy agenda, whether there's water-related issues, whether it's pollution, whether it's a scarcity issue, and how you can engage on that. And I think we've seen some organisations in the UK being quite effective at that, and the national debate has certainly increased. So it's encouraging those who are concerned about this areas to utilise their voice for influence.
Well, thanks all for those thoughtful ideas about what we can do to conserve water in our everyday lives, and Alex for that thoughtful comment about how we can engage more widely in society on this issue. If you'd like to read the water white paper that was referenced by Ellie and Shichen, you can find it by searching for Clean Water Technologies, Overcoming the Challenge of a Dry World. Also check out the Elgin blog for our latest thinking around this theme, or search for our stewardship team's nature framework, as well as their forthcoming water policy. Alex, Ellie and Shichen, thank you all for joining me today, and thank you to all our listeners.
As a reminder, this podcast is intended for investment professionals only and shouldn't be shared with a non-professional audience. The views expressed in this podcast are those of Legal and General Investment Management Limited, as at the date of publication. This podcast is for information purposes only, and we are not soliciting any action based on it. The information discusses general economic, market or political issues and/or industry or sector trends. It does not constitute research or investment, legal or tax advice. It is not an offer or recommendation or advertisement to buy or sell securities or pursue a particular investment strategy. Assumptions, opinions, and estimates are provided for illustrative purposes only. There is no guarantee that any forecast made will come to pass. No party shall have any right of action against Legal and General in relation to the accuracy or completeness of the information contained in this podcast. Where this document contains third-party information, the accuracy and completeness of such information cannot be guaranteed, and we accept no responsibility or liability in respect of such information, not for distribution to any person resident in any jurisdiction where such distribution would be contrary to local law or regulation. Copyright 2024. Legal and General Investment Management Limited is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. In Hong Kong, this material is issued by Legal and General Investment Management Asia Limited, regulated by the Hong Kong Securities and Futures Commission. For full terms and conditions, please visit our website. To find more content, you can check us out on X, formerly known as Twitter, LinkedIn, and our website.